of some more NFL preseason DFS picks and lineup advice, DraftKings and FanDuel preseason week 3. It is Sunday, August 25th. And yeah, bittersweet. Last day of preseason DFS, but we're going to walk you through everything here on the show for the next 20 minutes. Top plays at each positions, which teams are resting starters, which teams are playing starters. Don't worry, we'll get them all here for you. Welcome, I am Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. And yeah, live show. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. The daily plug is already up on the site, occupyfantasy.com. Let me pull it up here just so you guys can see it. There's the playing time notes for Tennessee. Got this for every team on the slate. That is already up. Lineup builder is loaded with our low risk and high risk plays. So yeah, we're ready to get going. Give me 1 second here to pull up the notes on my side, and then we'll be good to go. So again, welcome. It's been a great preseason for everyone here at Occupy Fantasy. A lot of members, a lot of newcomers. So it's been great to see everyone hop on board, and happy to have you along. So again, if you have questions, throw them in chat. 3 games today. First game is at 2 o'clock Eastern, Tennessee and New Orleans. A little bit of a split slate here. Our social media guy in a private chat said to me, it's a Thanksgiving slate. We got the early, middle, and late game. Yeah, so very similar to the Thanksgiving 3-game slate that we get during the regular season. So plenty of time to late swap, plenty of time to make decisions, and 3 different showdown slates to play. Perhaps more exciting. So, all right, got my notes up here. Let's scroll down. All right, cool. All right, let's check out the chat, see what the chat's got going. So we got Geek Hippie. Good luck today, everybody. EGS, good afternoon. So he's new to Discord, really liking it, appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of important Discord updates, especially during the off slates, which no more. All the slates are covered in the daily plug today, but don't worry, we will still be posting updates in Discord. Jose said, what's up? Point me in the right direction. Got you, bro. Joe's Madness, thanks for dropping the knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, let's get into it. Again, if you have questions, throw it in. I'll happily answer any questions you have today. Maybe we'll stick around a little longer depending on how many people are here for the show. I guess I'll start with playing time expectations for starters for each team. We'll start with Tennessee. Will Levis is going to start. So are the starters. They said extended action, not extended action, a little more action than last time. I'll always pull up the notes here, see exactly what we have. This is from the Daily Plug again. Expected to start and see a longer leash than he did in preseason week 1. Now, he just had 5 passing attempts in preseason week 1. If we double that, what's that, a quarter and a half? Who knows? So quarter and a half. That's not too bad on a 3-game slate. We're not going to play him at quarterback, but maybe we consider his pass catchers, you know. But again, we have a slate where we have, I would say, 20-plus receivers slated to play 35 to 50% plus of snaps. So not really sure we need to play Tennessee starters, especially when the playing time downside is just a series or 2. But good to know for Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis and the rest of the guys on Tennessee how long the starters are indeed playing. Let's go back to DraftKings here. New Orleans Saints are not playing any starters. They played starters the first 2 weeks. They will not play starters this week, which means we get Jake Haener. Let's just pull it up here. We get Jake Haener for a half, Spencer Rattler for a half. We will not see Alvin Kamara. Likely won't see Jamal Williams. So nice little thin backfield there for New Orleans. Let's get back to the live chat. Make sure we're not missing anything there. All right. 4 o'clock game, 4:30 Eastern game, Arizona and Denver. Starters will not play again. We will see basically the same game plan we've seen from Arizona through the first 2 preseason weeks. Clayton Tune will get 1 half. Desmond Ridder will get a half. A half of football is good for preseason quarterbacks. We only have 1 guy on the slate. We'll get to him here in literally seconds who's going to play more than a half. But plenty of guys that have some rushing upside with a half of football that can get there in the optimal lineup. Now, Denver, they're not playing their starters. If you recall, the last couple of weeks, they've played their starting units about a quarter and a half in some instances. Bo Nix was named the starting quarterback, which shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. If you watched the preseason games, you saw his draft stock. And Sean Payton has been extremely predictable in his usage, dating back to his time even in New Orleans. So Jarrett Stidham's going to start and play like a series, maybe 2, they said. Probably just a series, I would imagine. That means Zach Wilson gets the rest of the game. Now, quarterback 3 is getting 3/4 of work. Not always necessarily the best. However, Zach Wilson is probably the most talented of the quarterback 3s that we've seen get a full game of work. You remember Tommy DeVito yesterday. Think of, I guess even Jack Plummer put in work yesterday, but his first game. Some of these other guys, but Zach Wilson, kind of like Trey Lance in that sense, former first-round pick who's going to get a full game basically. Doesn't have the rushing upside that Trey Lance does, but actually talented and worthy of being the top low-risk quarterback on the slate and probably the top high-risk quarterback as well with his passing upside for 3+ quarters. All right, let's move on to the late game. New England and Washington. Not getting sharp vibes already from head coach Gerard Mayo. Unfortunately, loved having him in IDP fantasy football back in the day, but questionable coaching decisions and coaching tactics thus far. They are not naming Drake May the starter yet. Jacoby Brissett still battling. All 4 quarterbacks will play tonight. I imagine it plays more like last week, where Brissett plays a little bit. Drake May plays a quarter and a half, maybe 2. Zappy gets in. Milton gets in. Ideally, we get this like preseason week 1, and we get Milton late, but it doesn't sound like it. Hopefully, some national reporters will chime in on what the expected playing time will be. They have done that the first 2 New England games, so fingers crossed that we get that news a little bit later, but renders most of these guys unplayable in DFS outside of whoever the reporters determine is going to play the most. And as for Washington, speaking of guys getting a half with rushing upside, Jaden Daniels, obviously their quarterback 1, their high draft pick, he will not play. Marcus Mariota, by the way, Daniels is resting. He's out today. Marcus Mariota, still injured. He will not play. Sam Hartman, still injured. He will not play. Jeff Driscoll, Trace McSorley, we expect to get a half each as they did last week. Driscoll notably has 60 or 68, 69 rushing yards so far this preseason. This guy can certainly run. Great play in a half of football. Trace McSorley didn't run much last week in a half of football, but has run in the past. Used to play for Baltimore, played for a couple teams, and impressively did not get a single practice with Washington last week before playing a half of football. Now he knows Cliff Kingsbury's system, which we make fun of here all the time, but it does give playing time potential for a quarterback. So McSorley maybe performs a little better than he did last week. But again, so just to recap, we have Zach Wilson for 3+ quarters. We have Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler of New Orleans for a half each. We have Clayton Tune, Desmond Ridder for a half each. And we have Jeff Driscoll, and we have Trace McSorley for a half each. Plus, we also have Malik Willis, who we call a cheat code every time we write a daily plug when Tennessee is on the slate. Runs as much as possible. And even if he doesn't get a half, he can outscore some of these guys with his legs. So he's in play as well. Who do you think is the best high-risk, low-owned quarterback? Question from Eli in the chat. What's up, Eli? I would say Malik Willis is 1, right? Everyone's going to play Zach Wilson. Malik Willis is 1. I like the Arizona guys, but I really like the Washington guys too. Jeff Driscoll and Trace McSorley. Both those guys are low-owned as well. I mean, we saw it yesterday, literally as recently as last night. Tommy DeVito played the entire game, was 60% owned, and great play. And again, you can win. In fact, people have won and won smaller GPPs, and people could have won the larger GPP if they had the right combo. You can, even if you play someone like DeVito, let's say you play Zach Wilson, they score 6 points and disappoints. As long as you get the spike running backs and or receivers or tight ends, you can still win GPPs. So quarterback doesn't matter as much as you normally think it does, unless that quarterback scores like 20 points like Trey Lance has done. Jose says, can you run a lineup? No, we'll not run a lineup, but you can put together a lineup from the notes that I am giving out here. Jake, what's up? Our MMA DFS writer, owner of MMADFS.com, is in the chat. Are we expecting much playing time from the Taxman? Great question. Tax Collector, Olamide Zaccheaus, Washington Commanders. Jake, a noted Commanders fan, so I know he's tuned in there. Let's run through the receivers for Washington really quickly since we have this question. We do not expect Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, and even Luke McCaffrey to not play today. These are based on reporters' notes. These guys are locked into the roster. Do not expect them to play. I would expect Olamide Zaccheaus to be locked into the roster too, given his wide receiver 2 battle. He was not mentioned. He could play some. He would be the most talented guy that they have on the field. I'm just not convinced he plays a lot. Let's look at our snap count dashboard here. OccupyFantasy.com. This is included in memberships. And let's see what the tax collector played in the first 2 weeks of the regular season or the preseason. Let's just sort by name here. Let's see. Can you guys see this on screen? Let me see. Yeah, you guys can see this. Zaccheaus, 14 snaps in preseason week 2, 10 snaps before. I can't imagine he plays much more than that, Jake. So I would say maybe a quarter of work for Zaccheaus. They really want to get looks at these other guys at the bottom of the roster. So I'll play him in a handful of showdown lineups. I'm not sure I'm getting there on the main slate. And by the way, Jahan Dotson, yes, was traded. RIP, says Randy Scores. Randy Scores making his court-mandated appearance monthly. Should have been much more frequently, as Randy Scores, one of our longtime members, has been winning in-game showdowns, regular showdowns for preseason. Shout out to you, Randy, for doing the great work, putting together some great lineups. See if we can continue that today. Sons of Chaos says favorite New England wide receiver for Showdown. All right, since we're talking about the receivers in this game, let's go back to DraftKings. And typically, Dry Mayo is from the Bill Belichick tree of coaching. They typically run similar rotations at receiver throughout preseason. It's been pretty straightforward who to play. It's been Keyshawn Boutte, it's been Javon Baker, and then secondarily it's been Jalen Polk. So Baker, Boutte, easily the two favorite receivers for Showdown in that game overall and for New England. All right, just getting through some more questions here, and then we'll get back to position by position. Would a Denver stack make sense with Wilson? Yeah, I think so. Most people who play Wilson, maybe they'll try to stack him. They probably won't. It won't be as extreme as the Trey Lance situation 2 days ago. Was it a day? Yeah, it was a day ago. Jesus Christ. These late games and early start times the following day have been killing my schedule. So yes, it is bittersweet that this is ending for my bankroll and your bankroll. It is sad that preseason is ending for my sleep schedule and for my mental sanity. It is great that these preseason games are ending. But anyways, yes, we like a couple receivers from Denver, one notably that will probably go a little bit overlooked. So yeah, I think in high-risk contests you stack them. In low-risk contests, 50-50s, double-ups, head-to-heads, small field GPPs, you do not necessarily have to stack Zach Wilson because he's going to be playing an entire game and playing with a bunch of receivers. And as Randy says, occupies preseason advice is undefeated. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. All right. Position by position. We talked about quarterbacks already, basically. Let's talk about running backs. Probably the grossest slate we've had all preseason when it comes to running backs. Fingers crossed we get some pregame news. I don't think we'll get anything Jalen Wright levels of breaking news, even though that was expected for us. But Tennessee is going to have a few guys, especially if the starters, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, play some. New Orleans is probably the thinnest spot. Kamara Williams, we do not expect to play. Kendre Miller is hurt. That leaves just Jordan Mims, James Robinson, Jacob Kabodi. All three of these guys are great plays. Mims and Robinson in particular. Kabodi, a great high-risk pivot off of those guys. Arizona, they have, as you see here, a billion running backs roughly. James Conner won't play, but they do have Trey Benson, Amari DiMercado, Michael Carter, DJ Dallas, Tony Jones Jr., and even signed Hassan Hall for some reason. So who knows what they're going to do there. Denver, this could be an interesting spot. Denver, if you followed the first two preseason games, if you followed Sean Payton's coaching styles, they throw to their running backs a lot. Let me see if I have the note in the daily plug here. Let's go down to Denver. Do I have the note? I don't. I think the note was in last week's, but they've thrown like 16 times to their running backs through 2 games in the preseason. That won't stop here in preseason week 3. So whoever plays at running back is going to have pass catching upside today. And if we think about it, Javonte Williams is not going to play. We could easily see Jaleel McLaughlin not playing as he's a roster lock for this game, for this team. P. Ryan is on the cutting block. He could get cut. So he could play, but he's also a veteran. And if he's down on the roster, maybe they don't play him. That leaves the rookie Audric Estime, Tyler Beatty, and Blake Watson. Really like Estime, Beatty, and Watson. And Beatty and Watson, no one's really going to play, but they have pass catching upside. So like those guys in tournaments as well. New England, let's monitor. We assume Stevenson and Gibson are going to play. Gerard Mayo said every healthy player will play. That leaves 6 running backs. Fenwick did not get in the game last week. Not sure we expect him to get in the game this week. But we like Jennings the most out of this group. But again, pretty crowded backfield. And then for Washington, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler will not play with the starters and Jaden Daniels. That leaves 4 guys: Rodriguez, McNichols, Austin Jones, and Michael Wiley. And Wiley, despite being an undrafted free agent rookie, has been dominating opportunities for them. So he's the best of the group. But again, this rotation could change. All right, so Blake's question is Audric Estime's playing time. Good question. I'll show you what we have in our notes. So this is from Denver. All right, so we see starting running backs typically do not play in preseason week 3 for Denver. Let me just make sure you guys can see this. You can, okay. So typically, and again, Sean Payton's trends have been pretty reliable. Preseason week 2 leaders have led again in preseason week 3 consistently for Denver. So that means whoever led in snaps last week at running back for Denver or Sean Payton's teams typically lead again in preseason week 3. This year, that is rookie Audric Estime. So if we look at what he did last week, all right, Denver, again, this is our snap count dashboard. Again, if you guys don't have access to this and you don't want to pay for it, I understand. I'm trying to show you a little bit behind the scenes here, but yeah, a little late in the game to get access if you haven't already. You still can get it for today's games as little as $7 a week, but just write this down, keep it in your back pocket. Next season, when the Hall of Fame game starts, get access to this. So we saw estimate 24% of the snaps, 22% of the snaps. So I think a conservative estimate is 1/4 of work for Audric Estime. But if we look at what Denver did last year in preseason week 3, let's see how much those guys played in preseason week 3. So yeah, they only played 4 guys, which leads us to believe why we think McLaughlin, maybe P. Ryan sit as well as Javonte. Those leaders played about a quarter and a half, 30, 35%. So maybe that would be our actual projection, 30, 35%, a quarter and a half for Audric Estime. Makes him one of the best players on the slate as a result. And he's actually good. So Joe's Madness, thoughts on A.T. Perry? Yeah, A.T. Perry, one of our top plays today at receiver for New Orleans. Missed practice on Friday. They said it was a personal issue. Let's make sure he's good to go in warm-ups and suited up. We had to make sure of that last week as well for A.T. Perry, but last week was injury-related. This week is a personal matter. But yeah, dominates opportunities, competing for a position on the team. Not necessarily a roster spot, but a starting position or a rotational role. And they've been using him a lot. Now, if he's locked into that role, maybe he plays less today. So is he going to be worthy of his 30, 40% ownership? I don't know. But he has been dominating opportunities. If we look at our target dashboard, we look at New Orleans receivers. And we see A.T. Perry, 11 targets for 189 air yards. That basically leads the league through the preseason. Chris in the chat. Chris, our NFL manager, helped out with the daily plugs during the preseason. What's up, Chris? So let's get it. Let's end the preseason strong. Yes, I agree. Chris is going to be putting out the daily plugs for the main slates for the regular season. Can't believe it starts here just in a week and a half, 2 weeks. I guess in 2 weeks, Sunday. And Chris will be doing weekly videos on the channel for main slates, so make sure you subscribe here. Give Chris a shout out. All right, guys, let's get some more questions in. We talked about quarterbacks, running backs. If I don't do it, someone's going to ask, what about receivers? So I'll talk about receivers here in a second. All right, let's see here. Just checking my notes here. Okay. All right, let's see. Let's go back to DraftKings. So you probably could have deduced by now, receivers we like are A.T. Perry. We like the New England receivers a ton. Tennessee has some injuries, some guys that aren't going to play. I mean, you see all the Q tags here. Kyrus Jackson, Colton Dow, Kyle Phillips, DeAndre Hopkins, probably not going to play. Kinsey is dealing with an injury. He could play. We have to monitor warm-ups. We like him a lot. But all these guys, Schnee, Oliver, Jaquan Jackson, Westbrook Akina, all these guys are in play, like Tennessee's receivers. New Orleans has some guys after their starters. Arizona's got a variety of guys. Denver's got a variety of guys. Washington, if they truly do rest those guys, we like a couple of these lower-owned, lower-tier Washington receivers. So it's a good receiver slate. And given all the issues we have at running back, I don't think it's crazy to say flex a receiver in most of your contests today. Any guess on Zach Wilson's ownership? So if we do a little bit of extrapolation, 2-game slate yesterday, DeVito was 60% in the main contest on DraftKings. 3-game slate, a couple more options here. I'll say 40 to 45, somewhere in that range probably. So I think anywhere from 35 to 60 on the higher end, and I would lean towards higher end. I'll say 40. I'll go 45. We'll go 42.5. We'll cut the difference here. Jean-Paul, who won a GPP earlier this preseason. Shout out Jean-Paul. Top high-risk tight end. Great question. I think the popular tight ends are going to be Lucas Kroll for Denver. It'll probably be David Martin Robinson, who just does not sound like a football player whatsoever. David Martin Robinson. He has been leading the group in targets and has been getting some pretty good opportunity. So I think those two guys will be the most popular, Martin Robinson and Lucas Kroll. Washington tight ends, Ben Sinnott, decent option, as is Cole Turner. Who else do we like here? New Orleans tight ends, we got the late news last week with Mason Fairchild. They have some injuries as well, so Fairchild, potentially Jacobson, these guys. As far as the top number 1 high-risk tight end, I will go, I'll say Jaheim Bell for New England. And he has roughly 1 target this preseason. Let me see. Let me double check this for you guys. I think he has 1 target. New England tight end. Jaheim Bell, yes, 1 target for exactly 0 air yards. So can't imagine people are lining up to play Jaheim Bell. But they're dealing with some injuries. Henry's not going to play. Hooper will play with the starters at maximum. Wilcox has been dealing with injury in practice. He's probably not going to play. So it leaves just Bell, Petway, and Warren. And we get some of these guys that are flop lags, and if you play poker, you know what that means. But basically, flop lag is we talk about them, or reporters talk about them 1 week, they do nothing, and then they follow it up a week or two later. And this can be about anything in DFS. And we've seen that a couple times already this preseason where we're off a guy because he disappointed the week before, but they come right back. And Jaheim Bell is a guy that reporters were talking up pretty heavily, and just hasn't produced in the game. But now he's got some injuries ahead of him, should get more playing time, has the athleticism. So I'll say he's a top high-risk play. High risk, not necessarily in the sense of playing time, because he is going to play a lot, but high risk in the sense that he's drawn 1 target in 2 preseason games. John says, I believe Nate Atkins is supposed to get some burn alongside Kroll, can make a good pivot with Wilson. Yeah, played Nate Atkins in preseason week 1, didn't do anything. So he's certainly an option here. Camp Moyer is going to get some run as well. Blake says, thoughts on Devon Vele, receiver for Denver. I'll whisper this. Shh. Vele is our favorite high-risk play of the slate. We also have him as a low-risk option. He's going to play a ton. He got a ton of run in preseason week 1, got hurt. We expect him to be back. He's back practicing. Notice I naturally lowered my voice because we want to keep this a secret just between you and us and our members at OccupyFantasy.com. But Devon Vele, I think the best receiver play on the slate, especially you get that correlation with Zach Wilson if you pair him with him. Because if we look at Vele, I don't want to talk about him too much, but I'm going to. We look at week 1 when Vele did play, and we see 5 targets, 74 air yards in 35% of the snaps. So if he gets the same amount or more today, Vele at lower ownership because he missed last week. We like Devon Vele a lot. So sharp call there, Blake, and we're on it as well. So, yeah, I see Sean also has the same question. So you guys are right on the page. Maybe he's not as low-owned as we think he'll be. Any specific New England wide receiver you like today? Yeah, we talked about him already. It's Booty, it's Javon Baker, Jalen Polk in that order. All right, so if he's not going to be the lowest owned receiver, apparently, Hawk Dark says best low-owned wide receiver. Let's go back to DraftKings here, and let's think about this for a second. Like a lot of the Tennessee guys at receiver, Jaquan Jackson, Sam Schnee, Bryce Oliver. Washington guys sticking out a lot too, especially if we get the news that we think that these roster locks sit. Guys like Mitchell Tinsley, guys like Bryson Tremaine, guys like Marcus Rosemead, Jack Saint. The guys have been getting opportunities to run their field and or have been getting reports, positive reports during practice, during camp. So I would say someone from that group. All right, guys, it's been 23 minutes, 2 minutes left for the final preseason DFS stream of the preseason. So sad, so sad. But don't worry, because regular season starts soon, and we will have a Showdown video in exactly 10 days. I do Showdown videos, go through low-risk, high-risk plays, lineup strategies, lineup construction tips, overall ideas for the slate for Thursday night Showdown slates and for Monday night Showdown slates. You do not want to miss those. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel here. Something like 40% of our viewers are subscribed. That means 60% are not. The easiest way to not hurt my feelings by watching these shows is just subscribe. It's click below. It's free to do here on YouTube. You get notified when we go live. You'll get notified when those Showdown videos are posted. You'll get notified when Chris posts his main slate videos. You'll get notified if we do live streams during the regular season. So just subscribe, please. And give us a thumbs up. Best free way to support the show. Favorite defense? Yeah, just pick one. That's it. It's so random in preseason. It's the most random thing ever. I have equal exposure every time. Best high risk is Cardinals against Zach Wilson because everyone's going to play Zach Wilson. So I play the Cardinals defense. In fact, I got second place in the early slate GPP yesterday because I played Chargers defense against Trey Lance, which no one was going to do. Again, we're playing these guys for playing time. It's not like regular season where we're doing this anti-correlation. So I would say Arizona is the best high-risk one because they're going against the most popular quarterback. Chestnut, yeah. Tennessee, again, I wish the starters weren't playing a little bit because then we'd have 3 guys. But Pollard's going to hell's going on? Pollard Spears is going to play. Haskins hasn't played a ton in preseason. It's really just going to be Chestnut and Small. Small did miss practice briefly this week. He did return, so we expect him to play. If Small is somehow out, that really opens up Haskins and Chestnut. So we'll know here in about 30 minutes or so. Blake, yeah, he's asking. I'm not gonna do pick one of the three. Our plug has the rankings for you, so go check that out after the show. The plug is posted right now. All right, guys, that'll do it. I already gave you the please to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 10,000. 10,000, we will do a giveaway, so make sure you check that out. It is best ball week, basically, this upcoming week. I know there's no football to watch, but we're going to do best ball streams basically every single day of the week. That's over on our best ball channel, Occupy Best Ball. Go subscribe there. We're doing a giveaway once we reach 500 subscribers on that channel. So do us a favor, subscribe. And if you're into best ball, now's the time. Underdog Fantasy, I haven't talked about it too much in the last couple of days, but they upped their promo. If you're not signed up for Underdog Fantasy, where you can play pick'em games, you can do best ball drafts, all types of fantasy games, fantasy contests. They're literally giving away $1,000 deposit match bonus, which I have not seen in this industry. So you sign up for Underdog Fantasy using promo code Occupy. You deposit $1,000, they'll give you $1,000 in site credit. You don't have to do 1,000. You can do 100. They'll give you 100. They'll match it up to 1,000. But just an insane bankroll building deposit bonus offer if you're not signed up for Underdog Fantasy. Just use promo code Occupy. We'll get credit, and that's how you get the deposit match bonus. But just insane. And again, we'll be doing those best ball shows here over the coming 7 to 10 days. And yeah, it's a great time if you haven't done any best ball. All right, guys, that'll do it. After the show, go hop in Discord, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. We'll be in there through lock and through 8 p.m. when the final game ends or final game starts with any news. The daily plug will be updated with news and notes. Again, if you're not subscribed, it's as little as $7 a week on the website to get access to our daily plug for one final day. We think it's worth it. I know all of our members who have won think it's worth it. I think you will as well. So, Brian for Occupy, thank you for listening. Good luck and enjoy the final day of NFL Preseason 2024.